A fast developing situation in the Middle East. President Trump says Israel and Iran have agreed to a ceasefire just hours after Iran launched missiles at a U.S. military base in Qatar. But here at home, we are still on alert. We'll hear from cybersecurity experts on why the biggest threat to the U.S. isn't from missiles, it's from the internet.
That's going to be more effective than anything else because could create a lot of damages.
Plus, firefighters attack a couple of brush fires that came dangerously close to homes in the East Bay.
Knocked on the door and told us to evacuate immediately, and I was like, say less, and I just...
We'll hear from homeowners used to making a quick exit and why they're crediting some goats for helping reduce the danger. And it's faced years of delays, and the price tag has ballooned by billions. But the South Bay BART extension is making progress. We'll give you a look at the construction underway. And later,
come on in.
We'll meet a pharmacy owner getting ready to write his final prescriptions and shut down his shop that served San Francisco for more than a century.
This is CBS News Bay Area with Juliette Goodrich.
Good evening. We begin with the major developments in the Middle East. After nearly 2 weeks of fighting, President Trump says Israel and Iran have agreed to a ceasefire. He announced the deal just hours after Iran launched missile strikes on the largest U.S. military base in the Middle East. So the president wrote on social media that the ceasefire will be phased in over 24 hours, starting about midnight Eastern time. No official word yet from Israel or Iran. This morning, Iran fired more than a dozen missiles at the Al Udeid air base, that is, in Qatar. There were no reports of any injuries, and both U.S. and Qatari military leaders say all but one of the missiles was intercepted. So the U.S. currently has 40,000 military personnel in the Middle East. About 10,000 of them are in Qatar right now. And the move follows a U.S. strike on 3 Iranian nuclear facilities over the weekend. The Trump administration claims the strike devastated Iran's nuclear program. Meantime, Iran warned the U.S. about today's strikes in advance, and experts say that the warning, along with the relatively limited scope of the attack, indicated Iran did not want to escalate this conflict. But even with signs of de-escalation, federal officials are warning American companies to be on alert for potential Iranian cyber attacks. Our John Ramos spoke to cybersecurity experts about that threat, particularly here in Silicon Valley.
With Israel, Iran, and now the United States exchanging blows in recent days, even with a ceasefire, the question here seems to be, is it possible the conflict could reach the Bay Area?
For all the rockets and missiles flying in the Middle East, here at home, the biggest threat may be coming from an email.
The wars, and including what we are seeing here, is actually not just only in skies or in the battlefield itself. It's also on the servers' rooms, and the algorithms, and the data centers, and the R&D of the companies. And that's going to be more effective than anything else because could create a lot of damages to the, to countries.
Professor Ahmed Banafa is a technology expert at San Jose State. He says Iran has engaged in cyber attacks in the past, and usually focuses on the kind of infrastructure that can disrupt everyday life.
Companies like PG&E, for example, so they can paralyze the grid. Number 2, they can go after the financial companies like Stripe and PayPal. That's going to create a lot of panic. People are using those systems. They can go after the research that we have seen, R&D in many of those companies, especially in the artificial intelligence now. Silicon Valley is leading the world there.
And it doesn't take sophisticated weaponry to do that. Just having someone open the wrong email or click on the wrong link can allow a skilled hacker to infiltrate a system and potentially bring an operation to a halt. The Department of Homeland Security issued an alert on Sunday saying, quote, low-level cyber attacks against U.S. networks by pro-Iranian hacktivists are likely, and cyber actors affiliated with the Iranian government may conduct attacks against U.S. networks, end quote. Paul Keener, a strategist for a cyber consulting firm called GuidePoint Security in Virginia, says the potential attackers don't even have to be Iranian.
That is one of Iran's typical methods, is they use hacktivist groups. And so the hacktivist groups are, people who are ideologically aligned. And so, it creates the appearance of something bigger and more responsive than it might actually be. And so, yeah, is it likely that this will happen? I think I think so. If they can focus and do that, I would anticipate that.
And even though Silicon Valley may seem like a tempting target for Iranian cyber warfare, Stanford professor Alan Weiner thinks those fears may be overblown. The former State Department attorney specializes in international conflict resolution, and he thinks Iran is more concerned about keeping its own people under control, especially now that Hezbollah has been crippled and Assad's regime in Syria has collapsed.
And so what that means now is that a lot of the allies that Iran had that would have been in a position to put pressure on Israel have been dramatically weakened, leaving Iran itself very exposed.
Even before the announced ceasefire, Iran's retaliation has been largely for show. And though they could still threaten cyber attacks as a way of looking tough, Weiner believes they may be looking for a way out of the conflict.
I think the Iranians have been signaling that they want to de-escalate, realizing that they're completely outmatched militarily by the Israelis. And the minute you add the United States to the mix, I think they recognize that a shooting war will go very badly for them.
If that's true, the last thing they would want to do is unleash cyber attacks that would invite an even wider fight. So Silicon Valley can probably relax a little bit, although it still pays to be careful opening those emails.
The Stanford professor says Iran's rulers are generally unpopular with the Iranian people, so much of the regime's actions are designed to show strength as a way of keeping their own people in line. All right, earlier this afternoon, one of the last flights out of Qatar before air travel was shut down arrived at SFO. We met an Oakland man who was waiting for his daughter traveling from Qatar. He says her flight was delayed because of officials having to clear the airspace after the missile attacks. He says he is glad his daughter and everyone else on the flight made it to SFO safely.
Safety is the most important thing for all human beings, regardless who's wrong, who's right. So, and I hope everything goes right for everyone.
And take a look at this video here. This is the moment the father and daughter reunited as she got off the plane. Qatar and other Gulf states have reopened their airspace and resumed flights. We'll be tracking all of the latest developments in the conflict. You can find updates on the air on our website, kpix.com, and streaming on CBS News Bay Area. Busy day for fire crews in Contra Costa County. CAL FIRE launching an aggressive attack on this brush fire in Rodeo. It burned dangerously close to nearby homes. The fire was on the eastern edge of Rodeo, just north of Highway 4 and east of Sterling Drive. Kevin Coe spoke with one homeowner who was told to get out quickly.
It was just another Monday at work for Mark Panetta when deputies banged on his door.
While I was on the phone with my wife, they knocked on the door and told us to evacuate immediately. And I was like, say less. And I just left and came home with a couple of big fire extinguishers from work.
This was the view from Mark's backyard. Thankfully, he never had to use his own equipment, as CAL FIRE launched an aerial assault on the Rodeo fire. It included this 737 tanker, a former Southwest Airlines plane on loan from Australia, now responsible for holding and releasing 4,000 gallons of fire retardant. Firefighters on the ground stormed Mark's neighborhood and the neighboring hillside. It's unclear what started the fire, but rancher Nick Campaglia says he saw flames spreading near his cattle just past noon.
I see a fire, I see smoke, and it was just like an acre. And it was right below where, I don't know if you can see those goats on your camera there, the lower goats.
Ironically, these goats were conducting wildfire prevention, grazing the dry fields to reduce fire fuels.
Because of this, because of the fire. And anyway, they were here last year and did a heck of a job. I guess they're doing it again this year.
The goats have been a welcome sight for homeowners like Mark. In the 12 years he's lived at his Rodeo home, this is the fourth fire he's seen from his backyard.
You just got to just play it by ear. I mean, we love our house, we love the area we live, and we don't want to, I don't know, just kind of don't want to sacrifice anything for that, you know, and you just kind of just live with it.
The Rodeo fire burned 62 acres. The cause is still under investigation. For years now, we have been tracking delays in ballooning costs with the Silicon Valley BART expansion. And today we got to look at the progress that's being made. The 5-mile extension, it stretches from the Berryessa station to Santa Clara with 4 new stations. Nearly all of it is underground. Our Lauren Toms was in San Jose today to see how construction is moving forward despite another setback.
Beneath piles of earth, this construction site marks a milestone for the next generation of transportation in the South Bay. Campbell Mayor and VTA Chair Sergio Lopez, a South Bay native, says despite delays and cost overruns, the project is essential for the region's future.
As a transit rider, a lifelong Bay Area resident, and someone who's hoping to raise a family in this region, I understand the importance of being connected, and I think particularly younger generations, that next generation of the workforce, is going to depend on that interconnectability.
On site, construction director Sarah Wilson offered a glimpse of what's ahead. Heavy machinery already digging into the earth to make way for a massive undertaking, a 5-mile single-bore tunnel for BART to run beneath the heart of Silicon Valley.
This site where you are right now is the West Portal. It's going to serve as the launching point for the large tunnel boring machine. And that's what takes some time, right? We're going to be out here for a couple of years, and it's because we have to build all of the panels all the way around the long structure shaft.
But just as digging begins, the project's current contractor, the firm Kiewit Shea & Trailer, is being phased out. VTA says they couldn't agree on a final budget with the contractor. Lopez says the cost estimate from the contractor was 70 to 100% higher than the agency's budget, which stands at nearly $13 billion. Still, he says the project is on track.
I'm always going to hold us to a higher standard of transparency and accountability. And that's always going to be a moving target. There's always going to be more that we can do. Absolutely. But I really do feel that we've turned a corner in how we're looking at every single aspect of this project to keep it moving.
At the construction site on Newhall Drive, Tom McGuire of VTA says they're back to the drawing board to select a new contractor to carry out the next phase. And even with the shakeup, he says the timeline is holding for now.
Definitely still aiming for 2037 opening date. However, the starting tunnel, we will be starting tunneling later by going to a different contractor. Our challenge right now is to find a way to build the tunnel faster and to build the other aspects of the project, the 4 stations, the yard, all the structures above ground in a way that that compresses the schedule.
And for Lopez, transparency remains a top priority even amid skepticism. Critics of the project have blasted VTA for choosing to dig a massive single-bore tunnel deep underground instead of digging 2 side-by-side tunnels to avoid disruption to downtown San Jose businesses. Lopez says the promise of a connected South Bay is worth digging for.
So these are not easy challenges to address, but I really believe that the future of the region depends on delivering on major projects like this one.
VTA won a $5 billion federal grant last August. It has a shortfall of about $700 million. All right, still ahead here at 6 o'clock, a shocking summer storm leads to a deadly boating accident on Lake Tahoe. We have the latest on the search for survivors. Plus, a historic San Francisco drugstore is getting ready to shut down for good. The owner takes us through the family legacy that made it a community staple. An 8th and final person has just been confirmed dead in a boating accident on Lake Tahoe this weekend. The El Dorado County Sheriff's Office says the body was found around 2:40 this afternoon. They'd found a 7th victim yesterday evening. The boat capsized Saturday afternoon after a sudden storm moved in over the lake, causing 45-mile-per-hour winds and waves up to 8 feet tall. The storm also brought snow, a rare sight this summer.
But when we got here, it was like hailing. Raining a lot. Yeah. Oh, and then it started snowing.
Have you seen it snow in the summer before?
No.
The 2 survivors are recovering in the hospital. The identities of the victims will be released once the notifications to the families have been made. Closer to home, it is the end of an era. A longtime pharmacy in San Francisco's Excelsior district is closing after serving the community for more than a century. But unlike the dozens of other drugstore closures in the city, this time it's not because of crime or his bottom line. Our Suji Nam spoke with the owner about why he decided it is time for this final prescription.
Tucked away in this quaint pharmacy room, you'll find Jerry Tonelli, the pharmacist owner of Central Drugstore in the Excelsior District. You can feel the history within these walls, generations of San Franciscans coming in to pick up their prescriptions since 1908.
This is my father here, Dino Tonelli. He started working here in 1949 after he graduated from pharmacy school at UCSF. And he was a World War II veteran.
Tonelli's parents met right here. His mother was also working at the drugstore before they soon took over.
This was her favorite part of the store because she used to do all the buying for our cosmetics.
Tonelli then took the helm of the family business when his father passed away.
We get a lot of people from other countries that don't have health insurance and don't want to see a doctor, and they'll come in and, you know, I have this or I have that, and try to treat them.
He says it's been a great run, meeting new friends along the way. But now, Tonelli will be hanging up his white coat, something that is bittersweet.
You come in, you know these people, you know their children.
While Tonelli has made the choice to retire and close, he is concerned about independent pharmacies that are essentially being forced out by corporations coming in.
The city started letting Walgreens come into the city. And what happened then was they usually opened up next to an independent, and eventually the independent had to close.
Fran Colombo, who has been going to Tonelli for the past 50 years, has been hit hard by the news. She remembers Tonelli helping her late husband when he was picking up medication.
He came out, Jerry had his arm and was walking him to our car, and I will never forget that.
Colombo adds that for older patients in the community without resources, it's going to be harder to access the care.
I'm kind of computer savvy, but what about the people who aren't, who are just used to the walking in or calling in a prescription and walking down, picking it up?
In the meantime, Tonelli plans to continue providing the best care while he is open, but is also looking forward to spending time with his family.
Try to do some volunteer work somewhere and just try to help some people out, either at a hospital or a shelter.
Until he writes his last prescription, Tonelli will be right here, opening his doors with a smile like he's been doing.
Come on in, we're open today.
All this time.
The Central Drugstore's last day is July 15th. That's 3 weeks from tomorrow. Unfortunately, San Francisco is facing a bit of a crisis when it comes to pharmacies closing. A few months ago, Supervisor Jackie Fielder told us that 63 pharmacies have closed in San Francisco between 2015 and March of this year. That's everything from mom and pop shops to big companies like Walgreens and CVS. She's proposing the city look at ways to set up a co-owned and operated pharmacy network. The city's budget office is doing research into it.
After a lot of sunshine for most of the day, the fog is now swallowing up downtown San Francisco, and it's going to be pretty stubborn tomorrow, so we're going to narrow down the range of temperatures that we see on Tuesday. Today, we're in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. We're going to drop the 90s and even most of the 80s from the map tomorrow. Details on how long the cool down will last coming up in First Alert Weather.
All right, let's start the week out right, shall we, with a nice First Alert weather forecast. Can you do that for us?
Pretty nice.
Okay.
Yeah, it's going to be cooler tomorrow, but it's not going to last too long. So if you're ready for summer to actually feel like summer away from the water, I think you'll like most of the forecast.
Well, we'll take it.
We'll take what we can get. Let's take a look at what's going to be happening here over the next couple of days. What you need to know as we head through this last full week of June. Looking outside from Salesforce Tower to the east, the Bay Bridge is under there, but the fog is making its move, to say the least. We are going to be cooling down significantly from today to tomorrow. High temperatures about 5 to 10 degrees below normal tomorrow, but that'll be the coolest day of the week by a pretty safe margin. More cloud cover, even a little bit of drizzle at the coast. And then a modest warming trend begins to kick in on Wednesday. Our temperatures peak by Friday and Saturday, but within a few degrees on either side of normal once we get past that cool day tomorrow. Here's a view above the fog from Sutro Tower. It's, definitely being aggressive at how fast it's moving in. Temperature downtown is down to 57 degrees, 61 degrees across the bay in Oakland, and only 70 in Santa Rosa, 74 San Jose, but still in the low to mid 80s in Livermore and Concord. So kind of the late June pattern that we expect with 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s still after 6 o'clock in the evening. The temperatures did reach up into the low 90s in a couple of spots east of the Oakland Hills. That will not be the case tomorrow. Let's take a look at the fog, and it is going to make a good push across the bay and some significant progress into the inland valleys, especially after midnight tonight. That fog's going to be pretty stubborn, especially around the bay and along the coast. I think by midday into the afternoon, we'll see a little bit of sunshine glimmering through around the bay, but at the coast, gray skies overhead throughout the day, and it's going to be breezy as well. And those factors are going to combine to keep temperatures that 5 to 10 degrees below average that we expect by tomorrow afternoon. So what does that mean for the specific numbers? Mostly in the mid to upper 70s in the Santa Clara Valley, 80 degrees in Morgan Hill. That'll be one of the warmer spots across the entire region, just above 80 degrees around Antioch and Brentwood, but below 80 degrees even in Fairfield, mostly 70s east of the Oakland Hills, a mix of 60s and 70s around the bay, and only 50s along the coast for the most part, maybe 61 degrees for Bodega Bay, and mostly 70s in the North Bay as well until you go farther inland. Some of the terrain obstacles keeping that cool air from infiltrating Healdsburg. You're going to make it up into the mid 80s, and that will be the warm spot by, again, a pretty safe margin. Dog walking forecast for tomorrow. We've got a dog who is a aficionado of playground equipment. Trudy just hanging out and swinging away. Probably a little toasty on that playground equipment today, but no such worries tomorrow with temperatures in Petaluma only reaching up into the low 70s during the afternoon. It will be breezy, but I don't think your furry friends are going to mind that. It's not going to be as blustery as the conditions that we had late last week. Let's track those hour-by-hour wind gusts, and as we head through tonight, the wind's back down a bit. That onshore breeze is one of the factors keeping our temperatures cool tomorrow. Then the winds do pick up to a lesser extent on Wednesday, so that lighter wind is going to allow temperatures to return to basically what's normal for this time of year. And again, looking outside, just seeing all of that fog. That is going to be the major feature in the forecast for about the next 24 hours or so. Let's take a look at the 7-day forecast, and we will start inland, where temperatures will be mostly in the 70s tomorrow, but then it's back up into the 80s. But even the warmest days aren't going to be that warm by Friday and Saturday. We're talking temperatures maybe approaching 90 degrees in some of the hottest spots. In late June, we can definitely handle that as long as we're not dealing with any triple-digit temperatures headed our way. That's not going to happen anytime soon. Temperatures around the bay, 60s tomorrow, closer to 70 by Wednesday, and then into the 70s over the weekend. Looks like a nice weekend overall. I think Saturday is going to be the warmer half of the weekend. If you're already planning ahead, it's never too early to look ahead to the weekend. At the coast, your temperatures aren't going to fluctuate a lot after tomorrow, mainly hovering in the low 60s. I don't think the fog and cloud cover is going to be quite as stubborn after tomorrow, but it's going to be almost impossible to shake throughout the day on Tuesday.
Sure. It's always good to plan ahead and look ahead to your weekend.
Especially for the weekend.
Okay.
Yeah, maximize your time.
Yeah, thank you. All right, when we come back, a look at breaking ground in Vegas. Show me the money. Also, here's a look at what's ahead on the CBS Evening News.
Bravery and quick thinking prevented a tragedy at a church in Michigan.
We'll have the details tonight on the CBS Evening News.
I'm aware this may be a tough one for A's fans in the Bay Area to swallow. The A's broke ground on their Las Vegas stadium this morning.
3, 2, 1.
A's owner John Fisher and MLB Commissioner Rob Manfred were at the ceremony. The estimated cost of the project is almost $2 billion. The stadium will hold around 33,000 fans and is expected to open for the 2028 season. It will also be home to the largest jumbotron in the MLB. The A's will continue to play at Sutter Health Park in Sacramento until the project's completion. All right, CBS Evening News with Maurice Dubois and John Dickerson is next on KPIX. Local news continues on our streaming service, CBS News Bay Area. We're back here in 30 minutes with more news just for you on CBS Bay Area at 7. We will see you then.